What's the position on reparations?
I would be against cash payment reparations. My father, in 1966, walked through Bed Stuy. And Bed Stuy at that time was one of the most extreme levels of poverty in America. But there was something unique about Bed Stuy. There was a huge, very, very high level of home ownership. A lot of those families had been there since right after the Civil War. People owned their own houses, and you saw, people, there were flowers on the stoops. Houses were sort of painted, and people cared about the community. And my father fell in love with that community. And actually, Arthur Sneer, who wrote the most famous biography of my father, in that book, that when Robert Kennedy was not at home, the place that he wanted to be more than any other was Bedford Stuyvesant. And what he saw in that community is that there was this entrepreneurial spirit where people wanted to be in business and they were innovative and energetic, but they didn't have access to capital. They were redlined from the banks. The banks would not make loans in that area. They were redlined from insurance companies, things that were disadvantages. They did not have access to knowledge. So a businessman who was smart and everything, but he didn't have that accumulated access to business knowledge. So my father put together a group of top-level businessmen, Andre Mayer from Lazard Frères, Tom Watson from IBM, and a bunch of others, got them to make a commitment to come to Bed Stuy regularly and to mentor businesses. And when my father died, I went on the board of Bedford Stuyvesant Restoration. We built Restoration Plaza over there. When I first went out there, the closest grocery store was 75 blocks, 3 bus rides. A woman who was trying to feed her kids had to get on 3 buses, get her loads of grocery, climb back on those buses at 75 blocks. We got Pathmark to move into Restoration Plaza, which changed a lot of people. And then we built a theater there, sports centers. We started access to microloans, to grants, to be lower taxes. When I first started going out there, all the businesses on Fulton Street were boarded up. There was nothing. The last time I was there, Fulton Street was thriving. All of these storefronts were crowded.
Yeah.
That is good not only for the Black community, but it's good for everybody. I'm going to tell you one other thing. I spent 20% of my time representing Indians during my career in the United States and Latin America and in Canada. And a lot of the Indian tribes at that point were getting gambling. And there would be arguments, fights within the tribe about how do you distribute the gambling money. And the traditional chiefs would say, do not give it in cash payments. This money belongs to the entire community over the generations. It should be distributed that way. And what we saw is the tribes that put it into institutions like clinics, scholarships, business loans, microloans, building factories, those things, those tribes really flourished. The communities flourished.
Right.
And that sense of community was great. All the tribes that did cash payments was a catastrophe. I would be against cash payment reparations. So when you ask me about reparations, the word reparation means repair. The injury did not end with slavery. The injury and the deliberate suppression, the institutionalization of poverty in Black neighborhoods is systematic, it's systemic, and it continues today in a million different ways. And we need to rebuild Black communities. My approach to doing that would be to do it in a way that I think is going to be most effective, which is what we did at Bed Stuy. We created what we call a Community Development Corporation there, and it is now the model for hundreds of community development corporations around the country because it works. It's less likely to contribute to the polarization between Blacks and whites because it benefits everybody. Even people who are Trumpers, who I see all the time because I represent them in lawsuits against big polluters. If you talk about business loans to Black communities, everybody's for it. Everybody wants business to work and to flourish. That would be my approach.
I completely get what you're saying, and that is one way to do it, but I don't want reparations contingent on how another group feels about it or how another group is going to look at it. Maybe if we admit to the 800-pound gorilla in the room and what that represents and what it's done and what it's continuing to do, maybe reparations won't hurt so bad. If we're not trying to pretend that these things don't exist, there is no systemic racism, you just need to work harder. You had a Black president, so it's not that bad. Like, maybe if we knock that stuff off, reparations won't feel so bad if you get that we're really just paying back.
I kind of see it from both sides, but I do agree with Mac. It's not like slavery benefited us. It did. So I feel like in the repair or the reparations of that, there shouldn't be a thought of anyone else and how they feel about it. However, I get what he's saying as far as what works over time, what is going to actually fix the community and not just seem like Christmas for 2 weeks and then it's back to regularly scheduled programming.
That's where I said I get it.